Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. This video will be series 119, part 5. 5 2-hour videos on the Phoenix journals. Just going over one of the journals. Printed out some pages after I reviewed. So this particular website lists the journals in these columns, as you can see. From Here to Armageddon, Spacegate, The Veil Removed. And they called his name Emmanuel. I am Sanandra. These are different Phoenix journals over the years. City of Phoenix, Privacy in a Fishbowl. Satan's Drummers. You Can Slay the Dragon. Blood and Ashes, Firestorm in Babylon. You know, you start paying attention to this stuff and studying enough, you start to pick up on a theme. You get to see a pattern. You get to connect the dots. Shrouds of the Seventh Seal. The Antichrist Whore of Babylon. A Bitter Communion. Altars of Hemlock. You see what I'm saying? Altars of Hemlock. Operation Shandstorm. Counterattack Behind a Feathered Curtain. So go look up the Phoenix journals. This particular website is the www.phoenixsourcedistributors.com. You just plug in Phoenix, there's the website on the bottom. Let's look at a few more labels for these books. The Phoenix Journals. The Sacred Spirit Within. Science of the Cosmos. The $1 Trillion Lie. That would be the Holocaust Volume 1 and the $1 Trillion Lie, the Holocaust Volume 2. $1 Trillion Lie, the Holocaust. You know, they say the Holocaust during World War II, where apparently the Hitler regime intentionally put 6 million people in gas chambers and killed them. And of course some people, scientists and other people, have disclosed it's all part of a facade. Granted, there were Jewish people imprisoned and died. So were a lot of other people. But prior to World War II, there were newspaper press releases, articles, and a lot of fear-mongering from the Jewish people prior to World War II that 6 million Jews were in jeopardy in Russia. And all over Europe. There are websites you can go view those videos. So somebody shows you the newspaper clippings. So it was always 6 million Jews. And then they even claimed prior to that, where there were massacres, they were calling them Holocaust. So it's some kind of religious term and part of some kind of religious prophecy. Now think about that for a minute. Prophecy. So when the Jews, the Hebrews, I don't like calling them Jews, were assisted or aided by God and Moses to escape slavery in Egypt, that was all prophesized. They were praying for a savior, someone to help them. Then after they left Egypt with Moses, the Hebrews, now freed, and they make it to Mount Sinai, probably saying it wrong, and Moses went up the mountain to talk to God. A burning light, a burning bush. to get the 10 Commandments and some other laws. But while he was gone, the Jews down in the valley below gathered together all of their gold and made a golden calf, and were having some kind of religious orgy. And when Moses came down the mountain, he was outraged, smashed the tablets. You had to go back up to the mountain for 40 days to get 2 more tablets in the laws for living. So quickly, right away, the Hebrews went back to the pagan ancient religion that they had learned in Egypt, a Kabbalistic stuff, witchcraft, sorcery. And then, so that was like 1,500 years ago. So then between that period and a couple thousand years ago, they had built an empire in the Palestinian area, then called the land of Canaan. And there were warring factions between the Hebrews of the north, the Jews of the north. I'm not saying all this exactly. I'm not an expert. And the southern kingdom. So they were already having problems. And even when the Romans took over the area, there were numerous problems. Apparently, the land of the Hebrews were attacked by other people from the Middle East. So there was a lot of chaos and anarchy going on, to the point where the Jews were dispersed all over the world, called the diaspora. So there's a point to this. But anyways, during those times, again, back to prophecy, the Jews were expecting a Savior, a Messiah, someone sent by God. And of course, that would be the arrival of Jesus. But Jesus didn't teach what they wanted to hear. Again, this is me paraphrasing. You can look this stuff up in the Bible. Just giving you the gist of the story the way I understand it. Because Jesus wasn't promoting the Kabbalistic theology, religion, where he would be some mighty king or support some mighty king and guide the Hebrews in conquering all the peoples everywhere. Instead, this Messiah, this man, Jesus, taught to treat other men as you want to be treated. And he was casting out demons, and he was healing people, and so much more, even prophesizing, saying things that were going to happen in the future. This completely upset the existing establishment, the Pharisees, the leader of the Jews. They had to stop this man who was becoming very popular, Jesus. So this is again a prophecy. Back when they were in Egypt, there was a prophecy for a Messiah. Now there's a prophecy for a Messiah. Years later, I did a previous video, not too long ago, reading from the Encyclopedia Judaica, series number 109, the 1666 Messiah Sabbatai Zivi. I made 2 2-hour videos, and we'll be looking at that again. And then, of course, the 105 series was 7 2-hour videos on the Kabbalah. So I've been making a lot of videos, and I'm not trying to beat these topics up to excess. It just, in some cases, I feel like I haven't gotten my point of view across, or enough information across. So I thought I would make another video on the Mossad Connection Phoenix Journal. So here's some more labels for the Phoenix Journals. I highly recommend you go look them up, PDF format. You can print down the whole thing for free. The Mother of All Webs. Forces of the Enemy Within. Silent Bloodsuckers of the Tangled Webs. Threads of light among the strands of evil. Marching to Zion. So I could see where I could go look at a different Phoenix journal out of these 120 journals. Like I've been looking at the one Phoenix journal number 20, the Mossad Connection, and making these 5 2-hour videos. Which, number 4, I got 35 views and 4 thumbs up. But like many of my videos, as soon as I release them, I get a bunch of views and I get a bunch of thumbs up. And then everything just stops. So one has to wonder, and even my commenters say, after I've got 310 videos on a lot of them, people say they go back and they look at my videos and they say, Rick, none of your videos go over 50 views. Although there have been a couple that went to 118 or 180 something. It just seems like something might be suppressing them. I'm not trying to be paranoid. I do know that numerous videos of mine, they have demonetized them and sent me emails saying they weren't advertiser friendly. And I can understand that. I mean, we're talking about material where the truth is seriously dangerous. Dangerous for the author, for many of these websites and movie makers, and how many people working for major newspapers, journalists who have tried to print the truth, ambassadors to the United States, we'll be going over that, have tried to tell what was going on overseas, lost their careers, their jobs. So much. Alright, a little more here, then I'll get on to some other material, start reading from the journals. From the frying pan into the pit of fire. The last great plague upon man. AIDS and related murder tools. AIDS and related murder tools. The sky spraying of chemicals in the sky. Mercury in vaccines. Fluoride in toothpaste and foods and waters. And who knows what they put in our foods. I won't eat any of that box stuff. Canned stuff. Unless I have to save my life. Actually, now I go to the organic stores. The food costs much more money. But think about it, with the pesticides and herbicides inserted into the genes of food, the DNA, so that they will resist other plants, weeds, and bugs won't eat the foods because it has the pesticide DNA inserted into the food seed. However, they make GMOs, genetically modified, by one company called Monsanto, which if you look it up on a 666 calculator, Monsanto does equal 666, the mark of the beast. Computers are monitoring everything we do. Computer in a 666 calculator is 666, the mark of the beast. I could go on. Eric Schmidt of Google, monitoring everything we do, Facebook and all that. His name is 666. Kissinger, 666. Look this stuff up. Stuff people don't know. Alright, a little more here. Political psychos. We can say we got some political psychos in government, without a doubt. I don't think too many people will argue with that. So these are the different Phoenix journals. In God's Name, Advanced Demolition League. Just reading a couple of these. Walk a crooked road with the crooks. Taking off the blindfold. I think we all need to take off our blindfolds. Stuff is happening that's kind of bizarre. I found out there's a lot of material matching up with the Zachariah Stitchin's books, describing some Anunnaki aliens who apparently came here from planet Nibiru, and to save their planet, they needed to get some gold, turn it into dust, and seed it into their atmosphere. And it was too much work for them, or the Anunnaki beings didn't like Earth's gravitational pull. It was too much for them. So they created some hybrid beings, we humans, so they say. And then you got David Wilcock and Corey Good and some other people that I've been watching videos for the last couple days. Michael Salla. They will shock you. I'm looking at my computer. E.T. is already among us. So I think there's a huge amount of propaganda, deception going on. And the other website where I get these Phoenix journals is ww4wins10.com. And they don't give you the labeling like the other one with the columns. They show you pictures of the books themselves. So that was my opening to begin reading from some of this journal where I left off. You could see where I left off. Part 3. Let's see if I can go find where I left off part 4. So I start reading down. So I keep track. But before I get to that, I saw this other press release document that just continues to show the lies and deception and propaganda, in my opinion. A lot of people know, if they've been paying attention or researching, that General Wesley Clark, apparently after he retired, whatever, after 9/11, was walking down the hallway in the Pentagon. And one of his fellow generals, aides, whatever, pulled him over and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" Whatever. And General Wesley Clark said, "Well, what's going on with the repercussions of 9/11? And this aide said, "You can look this up on YouTube and get a more clearer story. It's everywhere." And he said, "Well, we're going to attack Iraq." And General Wesley Clark said, "Why are we going to attack Iraq? It had nothing to do with 9/11. And this aide, this other general, said, "I don't know. But yeah, we're going to take out 7 Middle Eastern countries, including Afghanistan, Syria, etc., etc." And this is 2017, April 17th. And we know now, since 9/11, Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, and plenty of threats against Iran, and many other countries, Yemen, lots of countries in northern Africa, and apparently even the Ukraine, the government was overthrown as some kind of retaliation, so they say, against Russia for not siding with NATO and the world powers attacking all those countries in the Middle East. Apparently, all this is done for the promotion of a greater Israel, Zionism, instead of that small portion of land previously controlled in the state of Palestine, now controlled by the Rothschilds, Illuminati, and the Zionist state of Israel. the wars have been going on and on and on, and it's basically depopulating the area, bombing all the buildings to smithereens, and according to even what I saw this last weekend and the weekend before, spring is here in the mountains of North Carolina. And for the first time in my life, in the state national parks, were peoples with burqas on, hoods on the women, and obvious evidence of Middle Easterns enjoying our national parks, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it's obvious there are more of them here, and they are clearly in the burqas, and great large groups of them. So a lot of the depopulation efforts in the Middle East, besides killing them and bombing all the buildings, is they're shipping them to countries all over Europe and the United States. And this is common material in the general news, the mainstream news, and alternate websites. But the document I came across was this document. You talk about propaganda. Syrian civilians killed since 2015. So this is 2017. We know the war in Syria, the war of the NATO, the Pentagon, the USA, controlled by the Zionist Israelis, Mossad, those people, these Illuminati secret society elites. To sum it up, Council of Foreign Relations, Bilderberger groups, Bohemian Grove, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Freemasonic organizations, not the people on the bottom, the people at the top. Rosicrucians, all these people into Kabbalistic theologies, witchcraft and sorcery. They're bringing about this new age, new world order, and all that ties into Zachariah Stitchin's material, Planet Nibiru, Planet X, Nemesis the Destroyer, and even ties in with the threats of a pole shift that they say is documented on these tablets in Samaria by Zachariah Stitchins and so many people. And now, like I said at the beginning of this video, with David Wilcock and Corey Good and Michael Salla in this video I'm watching, this will shock you. E.T. is already among us. All that stuff is tied together, including this document of depopulating the Middle East. So, what it says here is the percentage of who killed all the Syrian civilians. So see if you believe this. Let's see. The international coalition, so I suppose that would be NATO, the Pentagon, the US, Germany, France, all the people involved that have been over there paying for mercenaries, guerrillas. I've been going over this material. So the attack on Syria, like the attack on Iraq and the attack on Afghanistan, then the overthrow of the president of Egypt, the Ukraine, Tunisia, Yemen, the attack on the people in Palestine. They're, wiping them out. But this chart shows the international coalition as a light orange, responsible for killing the Syrian civilians. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, you can see that the light orange is between this dark orange and this yellow, little tiny line. These are the coalition, the troops, the secret societies. So you can barely see the line. There's a little bit thicker line over here. Actually, it shows that in 2017, on this particular month, the international coalition, forces from Israel, the Pentagon, NATO, the US, and everywhere, didn't kill any civilians. That orange there appears to be the Kurdish forces you see up on this chart. Kurdish forces. See the color? Okay, let's make the story a little bit more interesting. Who killed the most Syrian citizens? It would be this huge blue. And who would the huge blue be? Or am I feeling? It's saying the leader of Syria, Assad, is killing most of his people. Does anybody believe that? A year or so ago, they were blaming Assad for gassing his people. That was proven false. And between France and all these terror threats, blaming it on the Middle East, and this ongoing war in Syria, even the French were over there bombing, the Russians were over there bombing, we're over there bombing, the UK's over there bombing Syria. But apparently in all that bombing, not me, I'm opposed to this stuff, so are a lot of other people, but the secret societies that control our government hardly killed any Syrians, according to this chart released. And that Assad and his government killed most of them. Let's see, the extremist group would be the dark green on the bottom. So they were a big heavy hitter of killing civilians in Syria. And the brown forces would be Russian forces, so they're saying Russia's killing more civilians. Right here's Russia. Right there, Russia. Brown. So Russia's killing more of them than we are. We're hardly killing any of them. The Assad regime forces are killing most of them. The extremist forces are killing a good portion. The Kurdish forces are doing pretty good at killing the Syrian civilians. So I'm just trying to say, do you believe this chart? Knowing full well that President Donald Trump recently sent 59 missiles that way, and a super bomb to Afghanistan to apparently flush out some Arabs that were in the caves in the mountains, which kind of impresses me because I remember reading a press release about the geological study done in the Afghanistanian mountains that were apparently disclosing there were super amounts of natural resources and minerals in those mountains to be mined. And I'm sure the mining effort would probably take, a lot of work. Bulldozers, dynamite. But one super bomb, just me putting two and two together, theorizing why they might have done that. Oil, gold. I don't know what's in those mountains, but I remember the report. So anyways, I'll start reading on this Phoenix Journal and looking at some other documents for this video. Alright, start reading from the Phoenix Journal. I was thinking, what was I doing back then in the 80s and 90s? From 1979 to 1989, I was employed as an electronic technician in engineering research at a major aerospace company. So mostly I was involved with troubleshooting electronics for space shuttle, design of new electronics, F-18 jet, B-1B bomber, satellites in space, or working with scientists and engineers, building prototypes, new technologies. 10 years of my life. Then after that, when I got laid off with 1,000 other people days before Christmas, one of the standard procedures for these big corporations, I had a decision to make. Did I want to work in a vault and have a secret security clearance? Did I want to go out in the world and do something? And I was pretty much an outdoors person. surfing, windsurfing, water skiing, fishing, boating, sailing. So that's what I was doing during these periods when somebody was making these Phoenix journals, trying to get the word out. I didn't know anything about this stuff. I was enjoying life. I was younger. But here I am today trying to get the word out. Since 2005, when I went to Costa Rica, and a bunch of people at the Tiki Bar in Jaco Beach on the Pacific Ocean told me some things I didn't believe. I went back to Florida, researched it, and made a commitment to research for 10 years before I started writing a book, never thinking I would just bypass that and make some videos. So here we go. Look closely at your unholy alliance. This is page 135 of the Mossad Connection, number 20, Phoenix Journal. The secretive and subversive U.S. entanglement with Israel over the years has produced no significant benefits to the USA nation. You think that's true? Absolutely. They've been sucking this nation's money out of it and creating distractions to keep all we the people oblivious to what was going on. Quite the contrary, indeed. It has thrown the doors open wide for alien agents and lobbyists, largely the secret societies, Israel, and to perpetrate murders, dirty tricks, sabotage, disinformation, and espionage on an unprecedented scale within the United States, within your own houses. So this is the author talking to we the people, the publisher of these Phoenix journals. These facts are confronting you now as truth is pouring forth. And also remember, this is see where my journals are. I think 1991, this particular journal. It's important to pay attention to the date. $1990. Sorry about that. Just wanted to put a little perspective into this. So 1990, 79 to 89, I worked at a major aerospace company. In 1990, or just before that, I got laid off after 10 years and started a new career, which I've been in since then, working for, generally speaking, my own company. Companies I've owned over the years. Didn't have a clue about this stuff. These facts are confronting you now as truth is pouring forth. So in 1990, Hanton, the author of these Phoenix journals, is telling people this. From many sources which cannot be discounted as easy as you can discount God and the host. So that would be God and the angels, etc. Strange that it required a brave intelligence officer laying his neck on the block for you to begin to see and hear. And I've been going over that one book about the Israeli intelligence officer writing a book and telling all. So when I read the Phoenix journals or watch videos or even get material that the Phoenix journal references, I go buy those newspapers, those magazines, and those books. And in this case, I'm reading this one. I haven't made any videos yet. I'm still going through the book. You can see how far I am. Probably a quarter of the way through. By way of deception, you can get this on a used book site. I bought it for $3.50, free shipping on abebooks.com. The Making and Unmasking of a Mossad Israeli Officer, Victor Ostrowski. Lots of information in there. I did make a video 108 on this one, famous author. None dare call it a conspiracy. Gary Allen. Go try to find a book by Gary Allen on the used book sites. And of course, last video and other videos I've talked about this. Series 91, The Holy Serpent of the Jews, which apparently, when Tex Mars wrote me that newsletter, Amazon had banned this book. So they ban anything that tries to talk about who's behind everything. So when I start reading from this Phoenix Journal again, it all ties together. And then, of course, the other thing I've been reading lately, I did the preface on the last video. The Marxist minstrels, back in the 60s and 70s, they planned to use music and arts, education facilities, medical establishment, everything, to beguile, deceive, and alter our culture. And how many people would be upset and saying, wait, they shouldn't be intentionally altering our culture to destroy it. A handbook on communist subversion of music. We all know about the rock and roll and the satanic symbols on the albums, but there's so much more to know. Back to the Phoenix Journal. I just read a sentence here and it makes me want to. Strange that required a brave intelligence officer. So in the Phoenix Journal, it's talking about this book. That's why I just got it out again. Laying his neck on the block for you to begin to see and hear. I have been telling you this for years, and my scribes refused to present it unto you. In fear, and those who did were quickly corrupted, bribed, and distracted into the spiritual, incredible doctrine of the New Age. Lies. New Age lies. Brave news reporters efforted to tell you truth for some 15 years in the passing, such as Spotlight. I'm going to read from the Spotlight newspaper again. I ordered one of those. And you listened and read it not. So all this stuff has been pumped out there to we the people. And apparently nobody wants to pay attention. And it just continues to move forward, this New Age and New World Order. Which, if you read about it, it's not going to be good for us. Many brave and darling truth-bringers have met the ultimate physical death. They've assassinated a lot of people. Look at President John Kennedy, who said that the conspiracy secret society folks were repugnant to the American way of life, and he was going to expose it. He died shortly after. Discredit for telling you truth which you would not accept, and now you are on the brink of a fulfillment of the final prophecies. And a lot of people right now, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, are buying this David Wilcock, Corey Good material, and all these other people who are touting this ascension, New Age. Aliens and beings coming to save us from the Galactic Federation, or coming to destroy us and destroy planet Earth. We all have to unite to save ourselves. They have a plan. I think part of that plan is called Project Bluebeam. They have the technologies, the mind control, Project Montauk, MK Ultra, Project Paperclip, and so much more. Black Op projects costing the USA Treasury trillions of dollars every year. These days, probably in the past, it was billions of dollars every year. And we all wonder why our country is in decline. somebody is not building up a big, great country, like President Donald Trump said before the election, make America great again, his actions seem a little ominous, even though some people are saying, give Donald Trump a chance. We all fell for Obama 8 years ago. And they keep doing that, and I'm going to read something to show that. They did that back during the Reagan-Carter era. They do it all the time. The Republicans, the Democrats, the Republicans, the Democrats. They keep getting the people fed up with one and feeding them the other. Fed up with that one, feeding them another. Fed up with that one, feeding them another. Like a yo-yo. Of course, that is conquer and divide. And that is a well-known tactic, according to the Encyclopedia Judaica and other books, of the Jewish peoples over thousands of years. Even in that book I read, By Way of Deception, that intelligence Israeli officers says that we are at war right now, and the only ones who don't know it are we the people. But these Illuminati, secret society, Zionist people looking for a Jewish utopia are at war. A real physical war. A lot of it's a mind war, except if you're in the Middle East. You're being bombed, and those people who weren't killed are being shipped to the United States and Europe and other places overnight. And like I going to the national parks the last couple of weekends, it was pretty obvious. With the burqas and everything, you're walking down a trail, and there's a whole group of Arabs and burqas, and quite identifiable. Something I've never seen in my whole life. So, you can believe what you see. Of course, they'll tell you, don't worry about it. There's nothing over here to see. If you fail to act and take note of, you are destined to play out the play as handed down in terror and the Holocaust. The thefted state of Israel, I'm not writing this, has a lobby in the U.S. which has displayed its dominant power over the U.S. Remember, Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, and I know, I keep repeating it, and I hope people go look it up, in a heated argument in his Congress, he said, don't worry about the USA, we control the USA. And while you're at it, look up Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Fink's Bar. And then while you're looking that up, look up the relationship between the president's son-in-law, he's married to Ivanka, the president's daughter, and his connection to Benjamin Netanyahu, and start to put the piece together. Look this stuff up. Don't believe me. I watch videos, I listen to people, and I go look it up. I don't believe. So Jared, who's married to Ivanka, apparently has had many relations with Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel. And look up what President Benjamin Netanyahu said in Fink's Bar. Put two and two together, and you can see where this is going. Alright, establishment media by intimidating major news organizations into ignoring or dismissing such exposed as unbelievable or even more threatening as the product of ethnic prejudice or other antisocial urges. The stunning new book by Victor Trotsky, I just showed you that by way of deception. A former case officer of the Mossad Israeli Secret Service is headed for the bestseller list. Well over 500,000 orders have been received for it by American publishers. Does it tell you things different from Hanton's writings? Hanton will be the author of the Phoenix Journals. No. Only difference told, however, it is far easier for man to believe as it comes from a man's visible experience. Yet you experience it no differently than you experience reading a journal. Is that not so? So be it. You can see the personality of Anton in these readings. Another point. There was more active government interference with the Book of Ostrowski by way of deception. So they tried to stop that from being published, and you can go on used book sites and pick it up pretty cheap. I think, still. A lot of the books I buy, later on I can't buy them for $3.50. They cost a lot more money. In efforts to ban the material in the U.S., the intent of Kissinger and his mob, so even back in 1990, they know who Kissinger was. He was a Jewish man working for the Rockefellers. He was an interpreter after World War II, when the world conquered Germany. So here's this Jewish interpreter over there in Germany. So things didn't work out very well for the defeated German people. Needless to say. Twice, World War I and World War II. But that's another story for another day. The intent of Kissinger and his mob was originally simply to remove Dharma, and no one would notice. God works in most strange ways. His truth is present unto you, little sheep, says Anton. The book is now public attention throughout the other parts of the world, while being all but untold in the U.S. Well, that's why I make these videos and I read books, because I know a lot of the books I've found by watching videos, reading books, magazines, etc. Were published and popular when they were published, but then they just disappeared. Just like my videos. I get 50 hits and they just disappear. Nobody wants to watch them anymore. I guess I'm not connected. But it's okay, as long as I don't become too popular. Maybe I'll just continue living. If you get to be a threat to these people who are at war against us, they will neutralize people, purge people, murder people. Alright, that's what I've found in my research. Just as with other losses, it is hardly ever even mentioned on the screens of the media, never on the predominant pages of the newspapers. The French press, for instance, is giving it top billing just as they would the journals. So over in France, this stuff is more prevalent. More people are aware of what's going on in the world. Just like in my situation, going to Jaco Beach, Costa Rica on the Pacific Ocean. I was the only American sitting at the bar, the tiki bar, and all these foreigners were telling me things I found unbelievable. When I went back to Florida, to my house, and I got on my computer, on the internet, and started searching, one day I got angry, I drove over to Barnes & Noble, the books were right there, and I realized something was going on, something very evil, and it started my investigation 2005, so this is 2017, so I'm on year 13. So the French would have published the Israeli intelligence officer book, make it popular, as well as the journals. So maybe I should try to get my videos over there in France. And will they become presented unto them? A top French correspondent who served in the Middle Eastern Press Corps leader said, the difference with this book is that the truth about Israel, subversion, and terrorism can no longer be swept under the rug. Go buy that book. I make nothing off of you buying it. Except maybe helping to save the planet that I live on. The world that we have. The world that we grew up. The world they're taking away from our children now. Further, the U.S. is going to have to confront the anger and consequences of their actions from all corners of the globe. So whenever people I notice get too focused on one big issue, A bomb blows up. A mass shooting happens. 911. Stock market collapses. War breaks out. Something to distract people's attention. And that's intentional. That's part of the modus operandi, their operating procedure. All right, we have consistently and constantly presented the truth unto you, and you have failed to listen. So I suspect Hanton, after all those years making these Phoenix Journals, was probably getting a little irritated that people weren't picking up on what's going on while he was trying to tell the truth. We have pointed out through the writings and receivings through the years exactly what was transpiring herein. And man pronounced that God would not speak of things in Caesar's world. So be it. He who limits God and pronounces that God will not walk in every step with his creations will find the whirlwind most uncomfortable. For if they will eliminate him from their very existence, they will limit him from their very salvation. And this, beloved ones, is why there will be no rapture, as presented by the indoctrinated foolish touters. You build God in your image, and you will not find him within those images. So there's been plenty of evidence to prove they want to destroy Christianity, discredit God, and change our culture. This book here, I just read the preface, and many other books I've read over the years, magazines, documents. They are changing they already changed the American and European and world culture to this more decadent chaos and anarchy culture. And a lot of people who are fighting tooth and nail every day for more money and more materialism. The higher quality of life you have, the more expensive home you have, the car, the more money you need to make to keep the whole thing going. It becomes a very vicious battle. A lot of people end up in destruction in that battle. The paper Spotlight, for instance, has over the years given you a long string of documented investigative reports making the straight and erroneous course of this group an unswerving pursuit of truth, and the response of the nation and government has been to effort it in every manner possible to silence the press. So the Spotlight. So I was wanting to read a little bit from the Spotlight in this video. I have the newspaper opened. So I did go on the internet and a used book site and found the Spotlight. War with Iran. So we know that they want to take down Iran after they finish Syria. January 19th, 1981. So Hanton in the Phoenix Journals is talking about this. So I thought we would look at a couple things that were kind of disturbing to me. I read a little bit from this in the last Phoenix Journal. So I'm going to read about this topic right here. Basis of U.S. foreign policy. And I found this other little article down here. The Illuminati. So I'll read the Illuminati one first. The Illuminati. This would be the Rothschilds, the banksters who took over the USA federal money supply in 1913, December 21st. Days before Christmas, while our politicians were on vacation. Again, deception. We're at war. We've been at war for a long time. All right, so this advertisement here in this Spotlight magazine, it's a set of 2 90-minute cassettes. Nowadays, you can get these videos on YouTube and watch this material to your heart's content. The truth is out there. The most complete, documented, and detailed history available. from Adam Mushtoff. That would be the founder of the Illuminati. In 1776, the same year they established the United States after the Revolutionary War, 1776, with a lot of our political leaders, including George Washington, being leading Freemasons. That's just the facts, and there's a lot of negative stuff about Freemasons' secret society and their deity being Lucifer. So Adam Mushtoff, Engels, Rothschilds, Karl Marx, Napoleon War, Colonial Wars, French Revolution, World Wars I and II, all in these 90-minute cassettes. The Illuminati. Central banking, Federal Reserve, 16th Amendment, income tax, League of Nations, United Nations, Federal Council of Churches, National Council of Churches, American for Democratic Action, the ACLU and the Anti-Defamation League for Jews, the ADL, tax-free foundations, these are the organizations these secret societies operate under, tax-free foundations. Ford, Rockefeller, Carnegie, etc. Leonard Trotsky, Stalin, Jacob Schiff, Prince Philip, Lord Mountbatten, Rosebery, Lehman's, Kuhn Loeb, Goldman Sachs, Rhodes Scholarships, Jada Benjamin, Alexander Hamilton. Lord, I've got a lot to research. I've researched a lot of this stuff. McNamara, Humphrey, Colonel House, Bernard Baruch, that was the guy who controlled Woodrow Wilson. Said he was the most powerful man in the USA during World War I. This Jewish guy, Bernard Baruch. They put Woodrow Wilson in place because the previous president wouldn't do what the elite Jewish people wanted to do, and they had plans to acquire the Palestinians' land for the state of Israel. So they told that president prior to Woodrow Wilson, okay, the next election we'll put our man in, and he will do what we tell him. Think of that. You would think that people would get a little bit upset that their country had been taken over by these people. Herbert Lehman, Harriman, I guess Harriman was working with the Bushes. That's where Bush got his start. Walter Reuther, Warren Court, George Bernard Shaw, Israel Cohen, Earl Broder, Nelson Aldrich, Presidents Wilson, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower. Apparently Eisenhower was supposed to have met with some aliens. Kennedy, we know what happened to him. Johnson, Martin, Luther King, NAACP, CORE, CORE. CORE's been around for a while. And SNIC, B'nai B'rith Lodges. So they got these B'nai B'rith Lodges, like Freemasonic lodges, but they're for Jewish people. Grand Orient, Blue Masonry, we've been talking about that. Scottish Rite, and so many more, too numerous to mention. And for $10 back in January 19th, 1981, you could have ordered these 2 90-minute cassettes. Interesting. All right, basis of U.S. foreign policy, as in this newspaper Spotlight in 1991. A major factor in American policy in the Mideast, which has resulted from 3 decades of bloodshed. This is 1981. So for 30 years, there's been bloodshed. And since then, 37 years, this is 1917, so that would be 57 years of bloodshed in the Middle East. You don't think there's a plan? Read some books. I've showed you the books. I got more books, many books. Drained American Treasury. They've been draining our Treasury. Well, they created the Federal Reserve in 1913, which is not federal. So they can lower the interest rates, raise the interest rates, put money in the economy, pull it back out. They can control our economy. They can make all the people a little bit wealthy. Then they pull the rug from under their feet and take it all away from us. Then they'll put money back in there and they'll let people have their hopes up again. Audacity to hope, like Obama said. And then as soon as they get everybody fat and happy again, with their guard down, they pull the rug out again. 8 times since 1913, the way I understand it from my research. So the draining money from the American Treasury originated in the pulpits of our churches. Would be the Mideast policy. Long before President Carter politically exploited his born-again status, ministers throughout our land have proclaimed that the Jews are God's chosen people. That's what it says here. Many loyal, patriotic, and Christian Americans have taken this to mean that unless they blindly support aid to Israel, they are defying God. And if you've been watching my videos, that's hardly the truth. There was a caveat. Even Moses said the caveat. If they disobeyed God's laws, don't murder, don't steal, and so much more, then there would be a curse upon them. And they have disobeyed God's laws, so they're not God's chosen people. We'll be going over other books. I'm certainly not a religious scholar, but I can read, and I can see, and I can think. Thus, the strongest political bedfellows, the strangest political bedfellows you could imagine get together when the present Israeli government displaces 250,000 Palestinians. So this would be back there in 1981. 250,000 Palestinians were displaced back then. Over 30 years. And 37 years after that. So 67 years. Hardly any Palestinians left, at least. They don't have much land left. I know there's a bunch of people in burkers here in the United States in the National Forest when I went on a couple little hikes in the last couple weekends. And you read in the news they were converting UPS planes and shipping them into the United States with buses waiting for them, taking them to rural cities. And even over in Denmark, they said they don't need any more people. They don't have a work-labor problem. Why are they shipping them all in there? Switzerland, same thing. Germany, Austria, everywhere. Somebody's messing with us. If I read this article, maybe we'll see who. The Israeli lobby in Washington was demanding billions of American tax dollars, and conservative Christians were blindly agreeing. Arab atrocities received over the years blazing headlines and prime television time. We know who owns the television channels and the newspapers, so they're going to paint these pictures of people as evil. The fact of Israeli atrocities, these are in the news, there's a lot about that. The USA battleship Liberty, go look that up, was bombed almost to smithereens by Israeli planes, while our troops were waving flags at the Israeli, supposedly our friends, were trying to kill them. They were trying to blame it on Egypt because the USA was friendly with Egypt back then. So they had to break up that friendship. Go look up videos on that stuff. Don't believe me. Alright, so Israeli atrocities, expansionist wars. Remember, this is 1981. Torture and murder, some of it personally inflicted by Menachem Begin, went unreported. Well, it was in this newspaper back then. Thus, for the enlightenment of patriotic Americans, the Spotlight asked 2 Christian leaders with diverse views on the chosen people issue to their present arguments. So the Spotlight wanted to talk to a couple of our well-known religious leaders to get their opinion. Are the Jews the chosen people? First, we asked Reverend Jerry Falwell to present in this space the view he has often articulated that the Jews are indeed God's chosen people. An aide advised that Reverend Falwell probably would, after weeks passed, further inquiries produced the response that Reverend Falwell would not do an interview that God's are the chosen people. we had asked Cornelius Vanderbregen Jr. to present his case that the Jews are not, any more than you or me, God's chosen people. And Cornelius Vanderbregen agreed to do an interview. We regret that Reverend Falwell was unwilling or unable to comply, and herewith present Vergerburden's views. So here's Vergerburden, and I did read this in the last video, by Cornelius Vergerburden. Mr. Falwell rejected the interview, would not talk about his claim that the Jews are the chosen people. So in the last video, you can go watch that. Basically, it says here that I presented in the last video that Moses warned, "Behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing if ye obey the commandments of your Lord and God, and a curse if ye will not obey the commandments of your Lord and God." Now think about that. That applies to the rest of us also. That's why you can be saved, and I'm not trying to be a religious person here. To me, it's all fact, science. If you believe, because we're all spiritual beings in these biological bodies. But it is written in the Bible that if you believe that Jesus came, he was the Messiah, he rose from the dead, and you try to be a good person and repent, not going out there willingly doing evil, then you will be saved. God's mercy and forgiveness is great. People have been saved who have done some horrendous things. But you have to believe that Jesus was the Messiah. And according to my research, absolutely many, I'm not quite sure how many, but a lot of the Zionist Jewish people, secret society cults, elites, and powerful people all over the world do not believe that Jesus was Messiah, with a spiritual soul inside, sent by God. The Lord of Spirits, God. If you need how to figure out how to think about that. And so when Jesus did resurrect from the dead, according to some of the research, he was more in a transparent spiritual form. Which plenty of people have had out-of-body experiences, after-death experiences, seen ghosts. It's documented completely throughout history. All right, I'm going to go back and read more from the Phoenix Journal. I have another article I'd probably like to read from this. We'll see how it goes. The Israeli lobby in the United States, led by the Anti-Defamation League and the World Zionist Organization, have long denounced the term dual loyalist as a ethnic schmear. So even in the Encyclopedia Judaica, on part 2 of Zionism in the USA I just made, they try to say there's no dual loyalty issue here. But remember, the people fight wars through deception, according even to by way of deception by that Israeli intelligence officer. They lie repeatedly. They even have to have an anti-defamation league so people can't speak the truth. They'll ruin people. They'll assassinate people. There is a war on. War to the death, too. Protocols of Zion, the Jewish Utopia, Bloody Zion. I've got hundreds of hours of documented evidence from books I read. Their propaganda was supported by the Israeli government, whose spokesman strenuously denied that they ever recruited American citizens with ethnic links to Israel as auxiliaries or agents for their state's interest. Do you believe that? How do you think they got the nuclear bomb? They get all that money. Even in Obama's last year in office, or just the year before, it was in the paper that in that 1 year alone, No more billions were given to Israel than ever before in a year. And a lot of people were running around going, well, Obama is not pro-Israel. They got more money than ever that year. The battle is intensifying. They need more money. President Donald Trump just bombed Syria with 59 huge missiles. And the biggest mother bomb of all just was exploded in Afghanistan. Things are not slowing down, they're speeding up. And one day the people in the USA are going to wake up to a very bad day if we don't wake up. Now Ostrowski's revelations have confirmed that the Mossad, the book I just showed you, though you can order, habitually enlists and uses thousands of American-born sympathizers. We read about all that in the Encyclopedia Judaica, Zionism in the U.S. They had numerous organizations. There's a good combination of words. Many, numerous. I think I'm making my point. They had a lot of organizations collecting a lot of money. And auxiliaries or operatives for Israelis' covert activities in the USA. Probably all over Europe, everywhere. Further, you can see the hawks as they pronounced the need to invade Iraq back in 1990. While Israel begins the building of the final temple. I keep saying that. The stuff is here. This is all some kind of religion, a Luciferic evil peoples that were existed in the past. Why do you suppose, if God created Noah's flood, where a lot of people were assisted to survive the great flood? It was because of the evil that had permeated all of the world back then, creating even horrific beasts that they called things. Some kind of zombie-type people. Slaves, sex slaves, slaves they used for labor. And apparently the people from Atlantis, when the islands and lands were sinking, remember we have a lot of talk about pole shifting and cataclysmic events, and that looming now. But anyways, when Atlantis was sinking, they brought with them these hybrid beings that they had created and were creating, and it horrified the Egyptians. They were warring over that. And right now they're telling us they made all these discoveries in Antarctica. And during President Donald Trump's election, even John Kerry and the Pope and a bunch of astronauts and powerful leaders all over the world were going down to Antarctica. Why? What kind of evil forces are going to be unleashed on the world? And it involves Israel. It involves depopulating the Middle East. It involves rebuilding King Solomon's temple. It involves the sky spraying of chemicals. It involves legislation being passed. It involves trying to remove the guns from the people. The terrorist shootings and bombings and mind control. And toxins and poisons in the food and the vaccines. We are under attack, as I keep saying. Alright, so we have Ostrowski's revelations have been confirmed that Mossad habitually enlists and uses thousands of American-born sympathizers as auxiliaries or operatives for Israeli covert activities in the U.S. And further, you can see the hawks as they pronounce the need to invade Iraq. We've got the hawks going on right now. They want to finish off Assad in Syria. But one of those things that just is in the back of my mind is, according to prophecy again, when Damascus falls in Syria, is the beginning of Armageddon. And even now there's news out there, alternate websites, etc., saying that wealthy elite people, apparently have money and a little bit more knowledge, are leaving the big cities. You think they know something that the general public out there, citizen, doesn't know? They don't want the citizens to know. Whenever they do create this big event, You won't be able to leave your city then. Believe me, there'll be blockades. We'll be fenced in. Let's hope I'm wrong. But I keep reading these materials and I keep seeing what's going on. I mean, President Donald Trump did send 59 missiles to Syria and did release the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan. This is only April. He's only been in office a couple months. Can you imagine what's looming if this trend continues? And one of his biggest advisors is his son-in-law, Jared, who's buds and knows Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel very well. There's so much evidence out there. And they're building the final temple. Go look up research on that. King Solomon's temple. King Solomon had a magic ring that he could call forth demons, interdimensional beings, cast out angels, watchers, whatever you want to call them, archons, to assist him. That's where he got his power. They rejected Jesus. In 1666, Sabbatai Zevi, a Jewish rabbi, declared himself as the Messiah, except he came up with a set of commandments that were opposite God's commandments. Thou shalt kill, thou shalt murder, thou shalt be a sexual pervert, deviant, and so much more. Covet what other people have. Bear false witness, lie. Yeah, you can get a little emotional about this stuff. If you really care about your life, your children's lives, planet Earth, our grandparents, the people who came before us, the people who are going to come after us, are dependent upon what we do and what we think now. We're responsible. But how many people are just not doing anything? Never mind making their decision in their own head. Yeah, it does seem like Jesus was the Messiah. Yes, they crucified him. I guess that would cause them to have a little concern or feelings of anger for 2,000 years that they would kill God's Son. That might be possible. They have to change history, rewrite history, eliminate all memory of Christianity and Jesus. But I think most people are aware, in the end, God wins. The good news. And if you believe in God, as it says in Proverbs, whoever seeks refuge in me, I shall be thy shield. So if you don't have the faith, get the faith. Just a matter of making a decision. Keep the faith, no matter what they do to you. Don't worry. They can only kill the physical body. It's the soul you need to be worried about. My 2 cents. Back to the document. Yes, these are prominent persons, editors of major newspapers of the elite, Pulitzer Prize writers, commentators, etc., to counter the spread of lies under the facade of integrity in editorials and opinion op-eds. These are the ones brought forth at this time, and truth bringers are excluded from all major news interviews. You won't find Larry King inviting a truth bringer like George Green on the airwaves. Look up George Green. He is only allowed to have well-placed appointment disinformers. We see these talk shows on TV. I can see the propaganda as plain as day. Like that Ellen DeGeneres brings on a little boy or a little girl who had written a letter to Ellen DeGeneres or somebody saying she was so happy about her daddy's new husband. Well, the phone interrupted me. So back to my little story. Ellen DeGeneres, she brings on these kids, and they applaud and talk about this part where maybe the child was treated poorly because she was gay or her father was gay. So they're doing this propaganda, and they fed us Seinfeld for so many years and 2.5 Men. Shows I enjoyed, like everybody else. But, you know, Jerry was sleeping with a different girl almost every show. Seinfeld, not Seinfeld, but Charlie in 2.5 Men was sleeping with a girl or numerous girls on shows. And now, of course, we have Modern Family and many other. The propaganda is coming. It's anti-family values and decency and intentional. Congressional hearings and the communists. Who are the communists? They are the Zionists. They are the Jews who want a Jewish utopia, who have switched apparently from God towards Satan, Lucifer. These are the people I believe that are responsible for this ascension stuff we see with UFO and aliens and threats of a pole shift and Planet X and Nibiru. It's all kind of bizarre. I agree. That's why I do these videos, so we can have a conversation and think about it. Back to this document. The truth about these covert activities of the Mossad, Israel's intelligence service, which includes assassins. Remember, there is a war, and if anybody's a threat to your winning the war, this mind war too. Of course, in the Middle East, they're all being bombed to smithereens. But in Europe and America, it's a mind war. And people who get in the way of the mind war can be assassinated, discredited, ruined. And if somebody were working for a major newspaper and you tried saying the things I'm saying, you'd be out of a job. Maybe worse. Apparently, according to Patriot and other legislation passed by the governments, they can abduct people, hold them without any reason, even notifying family or friends. Disappeared people. Like I said, I'm just trying to say here, there is a war on, in play. Jade Helm 15, think about that. Showing and displaying all this equipment and troops and exercises, storming through neighborhoods and houses. And these other exercises like the Boston bombing, where they went house to house, very ferociously, testing to see how people would react. FEMA camps, so much more. Speaking of that, why don't I just do a little break in my talking and do something I kind of enjoy, looking at pictures. So how many FEMA camps are there? It'd be almost a joke if it wasn't so serious. Go look it up. You suppose all those were built just for fun? Built for Mexicans, maybe. Maybe all those Arabs and burqas all over our country now. Or are they building them for Christians? Department of Homeland Security. Alright, Swift Luck Greens, Department of Homeland Security, Central Wyoming. Oh my gosh. Yahoo Images, you can find these images, and there's a link telling you what they're all about. Look at the coffins they got. You can fit 3 people per coffins here. Per coffin. Even Ventura, the governor, Jesse Ventura, is that his name? Goes to a FEMA camp and starts asking questions. So they got a FEMA camp logo on the bottom in German, some kind of sentence. Oder der FEMA camps in the USA. And people will fall for it, you know that. To create some kind of plague or economic collapse, whatever. And the government will say, don't worry about it. Come to a FEMA camp. We've got groceries, water, probably wine and beer, volleyball. How many people will fall for it? What will it be like? What was it like in Germany? Is there one of these near your neighborhood? The big deception. I've been making videos. Camp FEMA. You know, maybe they'll even say, my pictures are sticking together. Maybe they'll say you can bring your pets. But once you get in, I highly suggest there won't be a bus waiting, so if you want to leave or go into town for the weekend. It looks like it'll be a permanent guest. It'll be like this. There will be no hope. The only hope these people would have, if I ever found myself in this situation, I mean, you're going to die anyways. They're going to kill you. But to, at the quickest opportune time, create some kind of distraction. And everybody, probably thousands of people, just rush the guards or rush through the fence. Granted, some people would get killed. But nobody's going to get out of these camps unless you're going to wind up in some kind of a Hunger Games little village and a slave forever. Let's hope I'm wrong. But we know what they did in New Orleans. Went door to door after guns there too. They didn't handle that very well. And these people made these pictures here that you can look up at Yahoo image sites. I didn't make them. Apparently all kinds of mobile homes, portable temporary shelters. Look at that, a flag with the barbed wire. (1941) 2011. Worried yet? I'm not being a fearmonger, just think about it. 59 missiles launched at Syria days ago. The biggest mother bomb of all exploded in Afghanistan. So things are happening. FEMA camps aren't real, bro. And if they were, it would be only for our protection and nothing else. Because the government would never do anything bad to us. Didn't Donald Trump, before he was president, say he was going to drain the swamp? And it looks like he's hired the same thugs who have been in operation. Even this guy called Mad Dog Mathis, some general who was pretty ruthless in previous battles, has been put into the game. So apparently one truck driver reported having a truckload of these signs. How do you suppose they would make those signs ahead of time? What about the guillotines? Go look that up on YouTube or the internet. Communist countries with infinite detentions. Hitler's Germany, Stalin's Russia, China, North Korea, Myanmar, Cuba, and United States of America. The NDAA was passed by a majority of Republicans and Democrats. Giving the president the power to detain Americans indefinitely without charges, signed by Obama, who said, "Even though I have the power, I would never use it. Trust me. You are defeated when you believe that you are. Anyways, they plan on breaking up the United States, according to this picture, into 10 different regions. Just like those big corporations that were too big to fail. They're worried about the one big nation. It's a threat to them. So they want to make it into smaller nations and control the governors or presidents they put in those smaller nations. Alright, well, I think I've exhausted my energies there. Just saying, it's all a concern. It happened before. And it happened before numerous times, and it involved the communists and the elite secret societies, the people that put, apparently, according to alternate news sites and videos I've been watching, you know, the presidency of Donald Trump was intentional. First of all, it was a bizarre election to begin with. Hillary Trump and Donald Trump. I mean, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. It couldn't really get much more bizarre than that. And even adding the added events of Pizzagate and so much more. Hillary having these blackouts, fainting. And Donald Trump saying all the crazy thing he was saying. He was going to drain the swamp, make America great again. I'd like to believe, I guess I haven't given up all hope, but it doesn't look good so far. Putting the son-in-law, who's Jewish, wealthy Jewish man with people in high places connected to him, it's a little concerning. And I've been listening to talk radio programs, and they've been saying some much damaging evidence exists than I say. I'm being light here on what I'm talking about. They say some pretty horrible, interesting things about Jared, Inca's husband, and his connections to Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and so much more. And we've been going over this stuff, whether it's the Encyclopedia Judaica, Zionism in the USA, the stuff on the Kabbalah. Where's my little cheat sheet here? My videos I've already made. Oh, Karma by Annie Besant. ISIS Unveiled by H.B. Blavatsky, the one who created the Lucifer Publishing Company. The Lost Book of Enki, again referring to these beings in the Middle East and the Sumerian tablets. Planet X Forecast, Series 103. None dare call it a conspiracy, Gary Allen, 104. Encyclopedia Judaica, Kabbalah, 105. 7 2-hour videos. 106, USA Anti-Semitism. 2 2-hour videos. 107, Encyclopedia Judaica on Jesus, 1 2-hour video. Said some horrible stuff about Jesus. I'm surprised they would do that. 108, Encyclopedia Judaica, series number, Freemasonry and Satanism, Zionist Kirshnev. 109, 2 2-hour videos, 1666, Messiah Sabbatai Zivai, Encyclopedia Judaica. Number 110, the 13th Tribe, Arthur Kohlstetter, 1 2-hour video. That one was demonetized by YouTube, which I'm really not offended if they think it's advertiser unfriendly. You know, the videos are a little bit insightful because apparently the truth is insightful. And if the people who really control the world that do control it, as we think they do, they would be fighting tooth and nail to shut up anyone who was telling the truth. That person would become a threat to them winning this new age and new world order, which is a war, World War III. So, just saying, pretty scary business. A lot of people think that ignorance is bliss, except for when it's all over, you wind up dead or in a FEMA camp or in a little town where you're forced labor for a Hunger Games town environment. And of course, whatever they did afterwards, taking one of the two of the people from each town, bringing them into some gigantic Olympic event where they all had to kill each other, and the winner would be the one who was still left alive. The sickness in the programming of movies and TVs and all this other stuff, and the actions, the big mother bomb in Afghanistan, 59 missiles at Syria a couple days ago, and so much more. Jewish Ritual Murder, 111 series, Edgar Casey on Jesus, I think I just did part 4 on that one, that would be 112. Jesus Christ in the Talmud Zohar, I need to do another one on that. The Dead Sea Scrolls, I need to do another one on that. The Encyclopedia of the Occult, Lewis Spence, 2 2-hour videos. I did that on witchcraft, magic. The Book of Enoch, 116, 3 2-hour videos. I need to do another one on that. Masonry Beyond the Light, William Shinobaum, 1 2-hour video. I'm going to do another 2-hour video on that. Encyclopedia Judaica, Zionism, I think I just did the number 4 on that one. And the Phoenix Journals, the one I'm doing right now, the Mossad Connection, number 20. This will be the 5th 2-hour video. Alright, the last half an hour of this video. The way I try to do it is in videos of a half an hour. And sometimes they're 2 15-minute ones or whatever, so I can keep it organized in my head, what I'm doing. And it's quite a job to knock off a 2-hour video in one day. Wears you out. But let's move on this encyclopedia, this Phoenix Journal. The truth about those covert activities of the Mossad, espionage, disinformation, economic plunder, and political intrigue has long formed the most anxiously concealed aspect of this alien infiltration in the USA. We have no spies in America, Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin asserted in 1981. Yeah, right. We read what was going on with Zionism, and that's no little game. That's world domination. And we strictly prohibit it, in fact. So they completely bald-faced lie. Would not tolerate for a minute any clandestine activity against a friend such as the USA. Strangely enough, during 9/11, they had some Israeli agents videoing 9/11, so they could record what was happening. They were arrested, and some other people in white vans, Israelis, were arrested with apparently some kind of chemicals related to bombs or whatever. Anyways, they were quickly released, flew back to Israel, and some of them went on TV bragging about their events. The events. So they lie completely. They were liars from the beginning, according to Hanton. There is no truth in them, according to Hanton. You had best refresh your memories of the truths, which can be found within the tempered book, for Satan is always required to wear a sign, and he will always present more truth than a lie, to capture you, mislead you, the masses of unsuspecting sheeple. According to Hanton here. On the bottom there. Cover-ups have become so commonplace that we are no longer even questioning them. And I'm just reading my highlighted portion here, trying to get through some of this Phoenix Journal. The establishment news organizations of the U.S. is so in tune that you accept their presentations without notice. So people watch the news. I hear about a lot of people, even elderly people these days. They're glued to that TV all day long. There's no discernment. They don't know they're being deceived. They believe what they're being told. In reality, precisely as we and others have exposed it, in fact, Trotsky, interrupted by the phone again. So we're talking about by way of deception, the Israeli intelligence officer who writes a book and tells all. Then another one I found by reading the newspapers, the Marxist minstrels, using music and arts and everything else to change the culture in the USA. You know, if you had the proof of this stuff, and I believe I do, you'd think that people would be outraged. But then again, when they're spraying all the chemicals in the sky, you'd think the people would be outraged. And so much more. Bombing 59 missiles at Syria. Again, saying Syria was gassing its people. I mean, at what point will the people wake up? But then again, I'm realizing that a lot of people are zombified. We've got tattoos of satanic symbols all over their body. Some people, more metal sticking out of their eyes, nose, mouth, ears, chin, everywhere else in their tongues. Mind control, you think? Something bizarre. They said they were going to do it in these books. Even during the congressional hearings in the 1920s, the communists said that they were being instructed and in the plans of infiltrating the religious organizations, medical organizations, educational organizations, arts and craft, music. I don't know what it's going to take. But if you trust in God, I think that's the first step. Realizing we are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. So the worst they can do is kill the physical body. But the worst they can do to some people is to actually capture their soul. That's why there's a term called soul snatcher. I think the Jewish people back then would accuse the Christians from the churches when they converted Jews to, Jewish people to Christianity. The Jews would get angry and say they're soul snatching. And then later on, when the witchcraft and other organizations were doing that to Christians, the good people would accuse those people of soul snatching. So there appears to be the battle for the soul. So I guess the question is, where would most people want their soul to go? To God's heaven or to Satan's fiery inferno? And even in my books on psychic research, people who were contacted after death during seances and stuff like that, the people who were God-believing good people were so happy where they were on the other side. And the people who were not so good, who did nasty things, weren't happy at all. I'll be going over those kinds of books again on those seances and psychic readings and stuff like that. I like to really get into different diversified topics to get the whole picture of everything. Remote viewing, UFO, aliens, ancient history, religions, witchcraft, Kabbalah, all of it. That's why I have so many videos and so many crazy topics. Let's see what I got here, just for a second. The population bomb, the serious mystery, the Hudson Valley UFO, intruders, Bud Hopkins, alien UFOs and abductions, Whitley Strieber, series number 39. So I've been doing this since 2013, making all these videos after reading books for almost 10 years, where I felt I was more qualified than I was when I started to have an opinion after reading a lot of books, a couple hundred. So moving back here, Trotsky has now confirmed that the Mossad and other covert Israeli agencies maintain large contingents of spies, electronic surveillance technicians, hideouts known as safe houses, and other operations in the United States. I'm sure they do this all over Europe too, in the world. I remember when I went down to Mexico on one of my business trips where I opened up an office for my business, and kind of vacation too. At the airport, I noticed a lot of people that seemed to me Middle Eastern, from the Middle East. But I stopped one of them and talked to him, a young guy from Israel. And he said, yeah, they are sending lots of Israeli young men to tour all of South America. And they had all these safe houses or houses where they were going to go to and stay for a while. And I just thought to myself, well, that seems pretty nefarious. Probably doing that all over the world. Bringing in all the peoples from Russia and Jewish people from all over the world in that program called Aliyah. And they're putting agents and people all over the world in position. It's what I saw with my own eyes and heard with my own ears talking to the young man. I mean, how many of us, the people watching this video, or even me, get to go do that and have it organized by our governments? Anyway, so parties. Israeli agents were going to parties in Washington and New York, gathering information from senators and congressmen. One of them ran an escort service that still exists. Trotsky, in that book on the Israeli agent, informs you his disclosures substantiate long-standing assumptions by the FBI that these alien espionage agencies use American Israeli firsters and even escort service prostitutes to sniff out secrets in the Capitol. So here we elect our leaders, senators, and other people, congressmen from our states, even probably in state governments and everywhere else. They've got these programs going on, even with prostitutes and drugs and money. And a lot of these huge ego people who try to be politicians fall for this stuff. They probably don't have to fall for it. Probably these people that are apparently turning traitor on the USA are just grasping for some power and wealth and even maybe in perverted sex and all that. Some sick people. And we, the people who elect these people, don't check them out. We believe the lies, and they have pollsters who take polls to find out what we want and what we think. And then they have these people who get elected tell us during their campaigns what we want to hear and what we want. And we believe them. It's an evil situation. And of course, a lot of churches have dropped the ball. And they've not been telling people. But then again, the government's been coercing the churches, telling them not to talk about politics, or they'll lose their tax exemptions. It's a war. Israeli propaganda has long claimed that the Israeli state's military technology has grown so sophisticated that even the U.S. purchased some of its products, such as a new generation of advanced pilotless aerial drones, small remote control planes used for reconnaissance. And I'm remembering from in the past I talked about and printed out some documents. Again, something I learned by watching other people's videos. That even small towns and cities all across the United States were sending their police and sheriff's people to Israel to be trained and show, like how the Israelis control the Palestinian population that are pretty much prisoners in their own country. So why would they send people from the USA, policemen, chiefs, sheriffs, etc., to Israel to train them. Who's the biggest country here, the world power here? We or Israel? Or is Prime Minister Sharon correct? They control our country. And they have plans for us. That's why they train our police people to behave and wear SWAT gear, just like we see now on TV, when we have riots and stuff. If anybody can't see something's being prepared for us with these FEMA camps and other things, technologies, then they're just not bothering not to look. Most of this advanced technology was originally stolen from the U.S. defense corporations. So who owns the corporations? I'm reminded again of Tex Mars sending me that newsletter he sends out quite a few years ago, 5 years ago, saying that most CEOs of large corporations, remember there's only 4 or 5 huge corporations that control everything. But anyways, these huge corporations, world corporations, he said all the CEOs were Jewish. And I didn't believe him. I was in denial. So I got a little binder and went on Wikipedia and other places on the internet and put in these major corporations, found out the name of the CEO. And predominantly he was correct. Tex Mars was correct. That's where I found out that Eric Schmidt of Google, CEO, his name in a 666 calculator is 666, the mark of the beast. Monsanto, genetically modified foods, Monsanto equals 666. And so many more. You can go look up a 666 calculator and it gives you all the samples of words. And anytime you find something really repugnant and evil, even Aleister Crowley, known as the evilest man alive, changed the spelling of his name so it would be 666. Is it telling you something? You don't like religion, but everybody's going for this New Age satanic religion. And they say they don't like religion. They don't believe in God, but they're going to believe in Satan or Lucifer. In this other world. Or this galactic federation. Or these blue avian aliens. I've been taking my notes today. Watching some more videos. I was watching the Endgame 3 by Michael Salla, S-A-L-L-A, today. He says historically, by this evidence in Antarctica, that they had a Stargate, like the program Stargate SG-1. This is the stuff that they're feeding to people that's going to be part of this new disclosure program. And these pre-Adamites, remember Adam and Eve? Adamites, created hybrid beings, I guess we humans, super federation of 56 groups of beings created humanity. That's what it says here in my notes. I was watching a couple videos this morning. The pre-Adamites, elongated skulls, also are the Illuminati and are the people who are behind the secret societies. Oh my. The Ansha beings, inner earth, apparently there's these beings on inner earth, through thought Adamites were psychopathic. So the Ansha beings in the inner earth thought that these Adamites, the people who apparently created hybrid humans, were psychopathic. The pre-Adamites, along with the reptilians, were a big problem for humanity. So my point here is I watch all this other stuff, and then I read this stuff, and I put 2 and 2 together, and where's the truth and where's the propaganda? They want to destroy Christianity. They want to make people believe that Jesus was just a mythology, didn't exist. You read all the books on the occult and witchcraft and the Kabbalah and even ancient books. They talk about Jesus. Even Edgar Casey in his psychic readings talks about Jesus. So what are we to believe? So we're back to the Phoenix Journals here. Zionist and Israel agents now head most of your top corporations and aerospace companies. Just what I said. Just like Jared, married to Ivanka, President Donald Trump's daughter, has serious Israeli connections. So who do you think is going to suffer? The Arabs? Well, President Donald Trump, getting to that 2-hour mark where I start misspeaking. Just bombed Syria and bombed Afghanistan. So where do you think this is all heading? All right. So if you get that book by Obtrosky, the one that's talking about here, By Way of Deception, Hanton says, you are in for some gruesome reading, as you will find the Mossad has acted as advisors and teachers and torture advisors, training local forces in brutal repression techniques, was behind the bloody civil war, for instance, that devastated Sri Lanka. The truth is, if possible, even worse, Israeli operatives fueled the bloodshed in the long, peaceful Asian nation by training and equipping both the government and, for extra pay, the rebel side for the mass killing. So that's what they do. They'll equip the government against the people, and then they'll equip the people against the government. They make money on both sides. No matter who wins, they're in control. The Hegelian dialectic. Divide and conquer. War by deception. Trainers in torture techniques. Even in Panama, just reading my highlighted portion here, under the regime of Manuel Noriega, you will recall that Mossad was there and very busy. So Israel had a hand in that. All over the world. They have infiltrated every part of your world with their evil. 1990, this Phoenix Journal was written, published. It says here, there are enough facts, irrefutable within these documents, to impeach presidents and stand Congress on its ear. Who in Congress, however, dares to step forward? We shall see, for if you, the American people, do not stand and speak up against this thing, you as a nation are destined to perish. And very soon. So I think I'll take one more look at the Spotlight newspaper and end this video. I wanted to read this, but it's just too much, but I'll show you the title. So it says here, regulatory agencies, this is 1981, shuts eyes, regulatory agencies, shuts eyes as cable TV invades your life. So we all know now they even have TVs that can see you, cell phones that can listen to you, even probably emit frequencies that cause you distress, health issues. So they were concerned about this back then. And this was a picture here in the newspaper. 1981. Now, who do you think owns these big corporations? This was an article I saw that was kind of concerning. I know they have most of we the people deceived. And there was a lot of planning, as many of us know, by the communists to infiltrate our world through the music, arts, and such to destroy our culture. I got this book because I got this in Spotlight magazine. I got this Spotlight magazine because it was mentioned in the Phoenix Journals. You see how the dominoes go? I follow up and go get stuff and read it. So let me read a little bit from this and end this video. The establishment canonizes John Lennon. Remember, Lenin was shot. With no mention of Marxism and narcotics. Remember, they're intentionally trying to destroy our society through drugs, arts and culture, TV programming, movies, music, etc. It was a plan. I've been saying it's a plan. We know who's behind the plan. The Jewish Utopia Zionist secret society, folks. And they're feeding us all this propaganda about galactic federations and ascensions and all kinds of UFO technologies and peoples being discovered in Antarctica in the world. And they're getting ready to do disclosure. A lot of people are buying this. After they've been doing this for so many years. So let me read this. The slaying of John Lennon was followed by a tidal wave of eulogies of the dead Beatle by the establishment media. There was no mention of his Marxist connections, nor of the subversive qualities of his music. So let me read by Harry Irvingham. Gotta say his name right. John Lennon's most famous line was, "We are more popular than Jesus." This may have caused his assassin, Mark Chapman, to think that this murder would make him famous too. He could be right. At once, the major networks gave much valuable time and honored mention to John Lennon. You would think we had lost a national hero. Instead of an avowed atheist, a pitchman for illicit drugs, and a Marxist lyrics. So over the years, even with the Encyclopedia Judaica, the Jewish people were pro-revolutionaries and would incite the populations. So this is part of the Communist Manifesto procedure, and even had congressional hearings in the 1920s, plus or minus, and these people testified that this was all a fact. All right, as the continued Lenin buildup by our nation's major news media, so they did build him up and built up many other bands, taking a lot of people down the path, beguilement, destroying our USA as a strong nation. And through the lies and deception, many of our young people have gone off to war in the Middle East, especially after 9/11. And it's not been too pleasant, all the stories we hear about how many of them even commit suicide and the stories they tell. Watch some of the YouTube videos. As the continued Lenin buildup by our nation's major news media, the Kremlin bosses, remember this newspaper is 1981, in Moscow must be courting with glee. Remember, the Kremlin in 1981 had been taken over by the Bolshevik Jewish people in 1917, and over the next 10 or 15 years killed 100 million, so it's been said, Christian people and other good people, destroyed the Christian churches but not the Jewish temples. So a lot of people would have us believe that the Jewish people do not control Russia anymore. Big question, isn't it? When we know they control the USA. Why would they ever give up Russia? So this big game of pitting countries against each other seems to me a big facade, a big deception. And they're continuing the game of the propaganda with the rest of us, with the gay agenda and the New Age material and the deception in the press about who's killing whom. You would think we had lost a national hero instead of an avowed atheist, a pitchman for illicit drugs and Marxist lyrics. As the continued Lenin buildup by our nation's major news media, the Kremlin bosses in Moscow must still be courting with glee. John Lennon was murdered by a young Beatle rock fan who had twice attempted suicide. It was Lennon's hard rock music that helped to make Mark Chapman what he was. Mark was known for his open hostility. So they're doing all this propaganda, creating all these hostility of peoples all over the country against the establishment. That's a fact. His mind showed that hard rock and drugs had taken their toll. I wonder how many people that's true about. How many people we all know in our families who were involved in this since the hippie age. But Mark wasn't the only one. Millions of young Americans have showed the effects of John Lennon's lyrics against God and all religion and against patriotism, private property, and national sovereignty. You see what I'm saying? This is written in 1981 in the Spotlight newspaper. And people believe this stuff now, feverishly. John Lennon's lyrics were even more specific. His hard rock songs openly pushed drug usage, sexual promiscuity among America's youth people, drugs that sapped their strength and drained their brains, and wild sex orgies that led to teenage pregnancies and abortions, venereal diseases in epidemic proportions, and destructions of the will to live. So I guess the way to destroy a nation is internally. Yoko Ono, Lennon's Japanese live-in sex mate, who finally persuaded Lennon to marry her, asked all of Lennon's friends to pray for his soul. But to whom will they pray? The Beatles once said, "We probably seem to be anti-religious because of the fact that none of us believes in God." And that was in Playboy magazine, February 1965. Lennon once portrayed Jesus as a garlic-eating, stinking little yellow, greasy fascist bastard. I don't even want to say it. The primitive beat of rock music excites the sexual passions of teenage girls. They did that with Elvis Presley, too. Big money was making big money by exciting all the young people into these concerts and activities and drugs. Even the CIA has been found out to have been dealing in this stuff. There is a plan to destroy our society. Alright, so many young girls, 13 to 17, were easily seduced after being morally disarmed by the rhythm of rock and roll. It also led young boys to rebellion against authority. Just what the communists in the U.S. need for riots and revolutions to destroy our nations. There's a lot more here I'd like to read. But I think you got the point. I'm concerned for the USA, Europe, and the world. I can see when I walk down the street or I talk to people or try to engage people in a conversation about any of this stuff. And usually you get shut out. I've even had people tell me, "Ignorance is bliss, Rick. Don't you know that?" Or, "Yes, we know it's going to happen, but let's have a good time and party till it does." I just find that to be the most bizarre thinking. At least, that's how I think. What do you think? Thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.